Society is still highly ceremonial. Hello, everybody. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I think that even though we seem to think of ourselves as a highly technological, scientific, and very technical society, we are still very much like rooted, or our society is still very much rooted in these kinds of ways of thinking that are more like symbolic, esoteric, religious, right? Not so much practical, right? We have a lot of just the social norms that we have, right? Like having to follow a certain structure, and we can understand why those exist. They could be ways of letting us know that the other person comes in peace without having to say it. Like the handshake. They say that the handshake is so we could see that there are no weapons in the other person's hands. Or like saying good morning. It's like, okay, you're good. I'm good. We're good. Let's do what we have to do. But still, we seem to do a lot of things out of habit and out of tradition. And I'm very interested in the social cultural aspect of things, the psychosocial cultural aspect of things, why society behaves the way it does. And I would even dare say make an attempt to break those paradigms, not so much as to like deconstruct them, but maybe just become aware of them and know that certain people aren't going to be doing them, or participating in them. So like honestly and sincerely accept diversity, right? Not say you accept diversity and then go, swing back to your old ways of thinking, but actually live diversity, right? Tolerance, basically, is what I'm talking about. So the reason we have a lot of habits and traditions is ultimately because they're embedded in historical and symbolic influences rather than technical or efficiency oriented considerations or advantages. This is because our primitive society was ultimately imaginary, right? Symbolic. Like we would see things, we would have the impression, right? We would see a bear, and then we had to like come up with ways of understanding what the hell that was, right? But now, as a scientific, technological oriented society, we seem to become like machines, right? Where we understand data, numbers, and we're able to move around and maneuver in a world where like more practical considerations need to be made, right? Especially when we're talking about like infrastructure, building cities, organizing people, right? So all of this comes to mind when I was reading Eduardo de Soto's book, The Mystery on the Capitol, great book. And he's talking about how there were land disputes back in the United States in the 1700s, end of the 1700s. And land disputes would basically, not all of them, but some of them would be solved by 12 men deciding the land disputes, right? In the old US. Excuse me. So I was like, why 12? Why can't it be like 6 or 3 or 20 people? And not to enter the territory of very primordial mass consciousness or lack of reactions, knee-jerk reactions and attitudes and beliefs, which have to do with Gustav Le Bon's work on the psychology of crowds or the psychology of masses, where he basically says when there are too many people, we start to act like a primitive man, right? Like threat, oh, kill, whatever. And we seem to lose our logical way of thinking and our rational way of seeing things. But yeah, it was very interesting. I was like, why 12 jurors, for example? Why are there 12 jurors on a court case? You will be judged by a jury of your peers, and that jury of your peer consists of 12 people, right? Is it, and I asked ChatGPT, is it because of the 12 apostles, the 12 zodiac signs? There's something about 12, 24, 60, 360, right? In the whole geometry of life. And so these 12 people basically would decide. I mean, I don't think it's wrong. I think that would be ideal, even to, if you have a conflict with your neighbor or you have a fight with someone, it's like just gather 12 random people that don't know either of you, neutral party, and expose, have both people exposed to the 12 people, like what the problem is, and then let them decide, deliberate and decide what should be done, right? And I guess this 12 thing, this 12 people thing, is because you have a diverse perspectives, or you have diverse perspectives, and then that way that's supposed to help like people reach a unanimous decision, right? So there's deliberation, and then there's unanimity, which is everybody has to agree on the decision. If it's yes, all 12 people say yes. If it's no, all 12 people say no. If you can't reach a conclusion, you can't reach a conclusion. And like in court cases, it gets thrown out and all this stuff. I've already talked about this in a video I made on that. Pretty interesting stuff. But yeah, so basically that's the reason why there are 12. It's because of like historical and symbolic influences, rather than technical or practical perspectives, or ways of doing things, right? So I was curious. I was like, how many more of these things do we do just because they're symbolic or historical, and they don't even really make sense anymore? They're not practical, they don't make sense, they're not technical, they actually don't have any efficient, they're actually deficient to a certain extent. And let me get into the explanation of effective and efficient, because I don't know if you know, but effective is from effect. It's when you get something done effectively, right? Like it goes from cause to effect, right? But efficiency deals with the efficiencies from sense. It deals with the process, right? Effect is like the result, right? It got done. We got the message across. But efficiency is like either saving resources and time and doing it in the best way possible. It's how you do it, or the good way in which you do it, or the bad and messy and disorganized way in which you do it, right? Like getting a message across. It could be like, well, I'm going to tell Tom, and Tom's going to tell Linda, and Linda's going to tell Michael, and that way the whole office is going to know. It's like, no, just send an email out, right? Or how are you going to do it? How efficient or deficient are you going to be, right? Okay, anyway, I'll talk about that at the end of this video. Let me just get into some quick examples, because I have like 20 plus examples of things that we do just out of habit, out of custom, out of tradition, out of history, and not so much because it has a technical advantage, or we're actually benefiting from it in some way, or it's practical, or it's efficient, right? The first one, these are all from ChatGPT, is wearing ties. Says the necktie is a standard part of formal attire in many cultures, especially in business and diplomatic settings. While tie serves little functional purpose, they are often worn as a symbol of professionalism and respectability. Very clear example. Why do we wear ties? I hadn't even thought about that before now, but yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I like wearing ties. I think they look good, but there's no reason to, right? There's no practical, technical reason to wear ties. It doesn't do anything, right? There's no functional purpose, like it says here. Monarchies. Number 2, in countries with constitutional monarchies such as the United Kingdom, Sweden, and Japan, the monarchy holds symbolic significance and represents historical continuity, even though the monarch's political power is limited or ceremonial. So again, they don't really do anything, right? I don't know, conspiracies, but they're still there, right? Wedding rings. Exchanging wedding rings in a wedding ceremony is a symbolic tradition representing commitment and eternity. The use of rings dates back thousands of years and continues to be an important ritual despite having no practical function. So it doesn't do anything having a ring. It may keep other people away from you until you're like, I'm married. I guess there's that. National anthems and flags. I think just the whole notion of nationality, and right now with the Olympic Games, it's even becoming like less relevant, because you see people from the United States, and it's like a diverse color of people, right? or people from wherever, and it's diverse. Like pretty soon nationalities aren't even going to matter because, that's pretty racist. I know, I'm sorry, but uh, the diversity that we have now, and I'm open to that too, is thanks to this part of tolerance that I was talking about, and that's actually a good thing, right? So nationalities, flags, national anthems are gonna stop making sense, right? They may still be relevant, I guess. So it says national anthems and flags are used in ceremonies, sporting events, and diplomatic functions to evoke patriotism and unity. Their value is largely symbolic, representing a country's identity and heritage. But yeah, I don't really think it has any functional. Academic regalia, with the wearing of caps, gowns, and hoods at graduation ceremonies, has historical roots dating back to medieval universities. While not practical, they symbolize academic achievements and traditions. So you see how society and civilization is still very much in need of these symbolic gestures, even though they don't do anything, right? Public holidays. Many public holidays have historical or religious origins, such as Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving. These holidays are often celebrated for their cultural significance rather than for any practical reason, right? So there's no practicality in it, besides maybe the fact that you're able to rest, right? I would consider that a technical function. People need to rest. They can't be working every day of the year. The design of coins and bills. The imagery on currency often reflects historical figures, landmarks, or events that hold symbolic significance rather than serving a functional purpose related to the currency's use. I would beg to differ here and just say that as far as the quantity goes, the amount that is necessary, you need to know if it's 5 cents or 10 cents, right? Ritualistic voting practices. In some democracies, voting processes and locations are steeped in tradition, such as using paper ballots in specific community buildings. These methods can be more symbolic than efficient given the availability of electronic voting technology. So again, because of tradition. And it would even be counterproductive because there are easy ways to do it now with electronic means. Judicial robes and wigs. In some legal systems, judges and lawyers wear robes and wigs as a nod to historical tradition. This practice is intended to convey authority and impartiality, but it is not technically necessary for the administration of justice. Ceremonial honors and events. Many societies continue to hold ceremonial events such as parades, inaugurations, and award ceremonies that have historical significance but may not always be necessary for functional purposes. Standardized business hours. Many businesses adhere to traditional 9 to 5 work hours, even though flexible scheduling or remote work might be more efficient and better for work life balance. You see, it's like people just need to see you there for 8 hours. It doesn't matter if you're productive or not. You need to be there for 8 hours. And it's like, come on, guys, let's, reframe the work hour. The QWERTY keyboard layout. I have a video on the QWERTY keyboard layout. So yes, this was traditionally used to prevent typewriter jams, like it says here, but nowadays it's not really necessary. But it's still used just because of historical entrenchment, it says here. Ceremonial salutes and handshakes, so a lot of that. Religious dietary restrictions, honorific titles like saying sir, madam, professor, doctor. They're just used out of respect or tradition, but it doesn't serve a practical function. Tipping in restaurants, right? It says here, this was very interesting. The practice of tipping servers is deeply ingrained in many cultures, especially in the United States, even though it can lead to wage instability and is not directly related to the quality of service. It can lead to wage instability. I was like, so it's actually, again, counterproductive, but people still do it out of tradition. Daylight savings time, originally implemented to conserve energy during World War One. Daylight saving time continues in many countries despite mixed evidence on its effectiveness and potential disruptions, right? So just out of history, just out of habit, like it's like break the habit. Like why are we still doing this? Funeral customs. I thought those. I've always kind of think. I've always been interested in funeral customs. I think they're interesting. Traditions such as wakes, viewings, and burial ceremonies vary widely and often reflect historical and cultural practices rather than practical considerations. Again, but the the Egyptians, I think, did have that idea of the afterlife, so I guess that would be like a practical function. Metric versus imperial systems. Uh, Excuse me. While the metric system is more straightforward and widely adopted globally, countries like the U.S. continue to use the imperial system for reasons of historical tradition. I would have to look into that. I don't know if it's because of history or it does have like a functional purpose, especially being the United States. I don't think they would do it out of habit or tradition, but let me know in the comments. Surnames and family names. The use of surnames can reflect historical lineage and social status. In some cultures, they hold symbolic significance regarding family heritage and identity. Yeah, like why do we have last names? Why are they necessary? Specific legal traditions like trial by jury or the presumption of innocence in legal systems have historical roots and are upheld for their symbolic value, even if other methods might be more efficient in some cases. I don't know, man. I think the innocent until proven guilty thing is beneficial for everybody. Traditional medicine, art and literature canon, the inclusion of specific words in educational. I mean, but art is all symbolic, so that doesn't really have like a functional thing. Pledge of Allegiance, again, a lot of this national dress. Wearing traditional clothing during festivals and rituals emphasizes cultural heritage and identity, even if the clothing is not practical for everyday use. So, in conclusion, I want to say, as much as we like to think of ourselves as being like machines and robots, highly efficient, we aren't. We're very much still very deeply rooted in our symbolic, primitive ways. We want to have representations of things. We expect certain social conducts, behaviors, and norms when we go out of our houses. So, one thing that I was looking at was the difference between effective and efficient communication, which was like the example I was giving in the beginning. You can have a message for people and deliver it, be effective, but not be efficient. And what I would like you to take away from this video is how can you improve your efficiency? How can you improve the way in which you do things? How many of the things that you're doing are you just doing them because of your past, out of history, out of habit, out of tradition, but are actually counterproductive, are deficient, right? I'll give you like a clear example right now of something that I'm just like, wow, like that's just stupid. At work, we get told that we need to use emails to communicate, like among ourselves. Emails are clunky. They're not as fast as a text message, right? But people, or the people that are in charge, view text messaging like through WhatsApp or whatever as an informal way of communication. So yeah, just out of how it looks, out of the image, out of tradition and history, right? Because emails have been traditionally considered a formal way of communicating. They expect you to use this, even though everybody goes for the practical way, even the people in charge, and they just send you a text message whenever they need something, right? So yeah, there's an example that's just like, break the habit, get rid of that idea because it's not really working, it's not practical, it's not efficient, right? But yeah, how many more of those things do you have in your life going on that you want to share in the comment section? Let me know. And that's all I got for this video, so I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.